think when people hear, oh, we should practice gratitude, like envisioning monks.
I struggle with that a lot. And anytime it gets like more woo, I'm like, I need to understand like the logic.
It doesn't have to be writing in a journal. It doesn't have to be saying it out loud. There's 100 different ways that you can start to introduce gratitude in your life. Today we're talking all about gratitude. It is that time of year.
I'll be happy when I hit that goal. I'll be happy when I hit my weight loss goal. I'll be happy when I get this new house, this new car, and then it hasn't made you happy.
You have to like set yourself ground rules and expectations.
Yeah, anytime there's like blue skies outside, I always look up and I'm just grateful. Like, I mean, we live in the UK, it's grey all the time.
This is my life. I'm grateful for this in my life. I don't need to covet someone else's life because I'm so grateful for my life.
Probably even just like 5 years ago, I was a lot more negative than maybe I am today. Okay.
I've probably got more negative as I've got older, actually.
Me and Steph had a pretty bad argument. You know, like one of those ones where like maybe we're not going to talk to each other. If I was like, no, I'm not letting that be setting the tone. So I just went and got up and was like, right, we're going to... Hi, I'm Jaymie.
And I'm Stacey.
And this is the BodySmartPodcast.
And today we're talking all about gratitude. It is that time of year and we want to talk about whether it's even worthwhile starting a gratitude practice, what's the science behind it, how we bring it into our daily lives, and probably why you should as well. I know it's something that you don't find comes naturally, Jaymie.
I don't find it comes the most natural, but I actually think, is nihilistic the right word? I think I can actually be a little bit like that sometimes where I think about
that is the right word.
Okay, but then equally on the flip side of that, I'm like, oh, I actually get another day. And I think if you've had a lot of people who have unfortunately passed around you realize like how precious life can be, and tomorrow quite literally is never promised. And I think sometimes, even though that's like quite a morbid negative way of looking at things, it can also make you super appreciative of the day that you've got. Like, hey, there's another day. I've heard a few people say before, like, hey, if you could have £1 million but not wake up tomorrow, which option are you going to take?
Yeah, what's the point?
Yeah, you're gonna go, well, I want to wake up tomorrow. And it's like, well, you're already rich then. You get another day, you know what I mean? And I think it's just like priming your mind to just be really focused on like, I get another day, I'm focused on what I have, not what I haven't. And I was trying to say it's, and maybe Sai's gonna find it for me. You know, it's that always, I'll be happy when I hit that goal. I'll be happy when I hit my weight loss goal. I'll be happy when I get this new house, this new car, this whatever done. And everyone knows that you've set out goals in the past to say, I'll be happy when, and then it hasn't made you happy, or it made you happy for a short period of time. So I think just being able to turn that inward and just be really grateful on a day-to-day basis for the things that you have got definitely puts you in a more positive, healthy mindset. Yeah,
and that's a really down-to-earth way of explaining it, because I think when people hear, oh, we should practice gratitude, they're like envisioning monks or journaling or meditation.
And I struggle with that a lot. You know what I mean? Anytime it gets like more woo, I'm like, I need to understand like the logic and it needs to be logical to me to make sense. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that does make more sense.
Yeah, and it's 100% about like how you make that your attitude to life, as opposed to it being like something you do at 6 p.m. of an evening.
Yeah.
And like the way you just explained it is that's just your attitude to life. And I think it's something that whether you go down that route of really being appreciative because of the bad things that have happened, or whether it's something that you start to build as a skill set, and many people do need to try and build it as a skill set. Maybe then it is a bit of a thing that's shoehorned into your life. It is super important because there is a lot of logic and science behind it.
Yeah, and I think there's so many small things you can do day to day as well, where you can just take a minute or even just like 20 seconds to just be appreciative of a hot cup of coffee. You know what I mean? Or just like a warm house, or just like the little things that sometimes you just do take for granted. It can make a big difference.
Yeah, and one of the things that I find really interesting about it is, you heard of like the yellow car effect?
If you're always looking for a yellow car.
You go out and you're like, there's yellow cars everywhere.
Yeah.
That's kind of the concept behind it. So if you know that once a day you're going to sit down and try and think of something that you're grateful for, your brain's going to start like stashing through the day. Oh, maybe we can save that for later. And so that's why when you start, you kind of need to build it as a purposeful practice.
Okay.
So that your brain knows like to preemptively remember the things.
Yeah.
But then once you've done that for a while, your brain already is starting to preemptively notice the things. And you don't have to sit down and do your gratitude practice.
Yeah.
Because that's just become how you think about life.
which you can understand that makes like quite a profound shift.
Huge shift.
Yeah.
And if you think about, we had a really interesting episode a couple of weeks ago about trauma and how if you have had trauma in your life, then your brain is, well, even if you haven't, your brain is preset to look out for danger, because that's how humans have evolved and survived all of these millennia.
Yeah.
Because we're really good at looking for danger and avoiding it. So your brain is constantly on the lookout for danger. If you don't actively try and be on the lookout for good things, you aren't going to naturally do that.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of condition yourself to do that alongside looking for the danger as well.
And like negativity definitely spreads so much faster and so much further than positivity. I mean, I think most people could probably relate to seeing this on like an Instagram post. You look at the comments and it could be like overwhelmingly, 100 positive comments, but there's 1 or 2 negative and people focus or hyper focus on them. And I think that's in so many areas of life. If you just aren't actively trying to find the positive in things, everything can just feel negative all the time.
Mm-hmm. And there's a fine balance, because sometimes life is shit.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're going to struggle to find a happy moment that day. But if you've got this kind of practice going on in your life, or that's your attitude to life, there's always something. There's always one little silver lining.
Yeah, I mean, because I think we done an infographic on this many, many years ago called Toxic Positivity. And it's basically where, well, it's not that bad. These people in this country have got it worse than you. And like sometimes that can diminish that you are having a shit time. And I actually think just like gratitude is like, yeah, like it doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge that you're having a shit time. But still, like it's a good practice to be still thankful or grateful for some of the positives that you do have in your life, even when you're going through a shit time, because there's always room to look for some of the good.
Yeah, I think a really good way to avoid that diminishing kind of approach is to say, yeah, I've had a really shit day at work, or yeah, whatever's going on with my mum, and I've also got a roof over my head. Don't say but, because that does diminish the previous thing.
Okay.
But if you say and I just got to see my best friend and I haven't seen her for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It allows you to recognize the good things without saying you have to discount the bad things.
Yeah. I actually, I think I seen, oh my God, what's his name? Patrick Bet-David. And I seen a clip of him do something with his 2 boys. And they were having like a bit of a fight, I think, with each other. And I think he just put them in a room to one side and basically said, you can't come out for the next 5 minutes and you've got to look at each other in each other's eyes and you've got to say compliments, positive things to each other, for the next 5 minutes straight. And I was like, oh, that's good. And he was like, because that's how, I thought that's really clever. And me and Steph had a bit of a pretty bad argument like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Like one of those ones where like maybe we're not going to talk to each other for the rest, like for like the next couple hours. And I was like, no, I'm not letting that be setting the tone. So I just went and got up and was like, right, we're going to sit down and we're going to look at each other in his eye and we're just going to compliment. We're just going to say nice things about each other for the next 5 minutes. So I just put the timer on my phone and we done it for 5 minutes, and all we done was just said things that we were basically grateful for each other. And like by the end of it, like she started crying, and we just had a hug, and like we were just able to just go from like having like a really, like we just had like a bit of a big fight and then just swapped it and just done that for 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden was just like in a much, better place and could almost laugh about it a little bit.
Do you know what? That's really supported by the neuroscience of gratitude, as it happens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because actually when you express gratitude, your
Yeah.
brain releases serotonin and dopamine, which are happy hormones, pleasure reward hormones. And both of them counteract the effect of cortisol, which is like your stress, fight or flight. So when you're in a row with somebody, your cortisol is spiked. You are angry, you are stressed, you don't particularly want to be nice to them.
Yeah.
When you force yourself to be grateful, you're like physiologically changing that, which is super cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's really cool, isn't it? Because it's not easy to do, but by no means, but it's like taking that step and doing that. I think it just doesn't allow some of that sort of like bad blood or to sort of spill into the next day and cause other issues.
That's a really good practical example of when it's a very heated situation. But even if your day to day is just niggling at you, and your day to day is like little cortisol spikes, like your kids are screaming, you're late for work, you've missed a deadline, all of that is building up your cortisol. This is why practicing gratitude is so powerful. Because if you also have little hits of gratitude through the day, you kind of recalibrate through the day.
Balance that back out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done it a couple of times where I think I got off, I keep name dropping today. Brendan Burchard, who wrote High Performance Habits, And his big thing was, not taking the energy of one place into the next. So like, let's say you've had a really stressful day at work. When you get home, before you step into the house and maybe speak with, your partner and the kids or whoever else is in there, and just making sure that you're actually pausing before you go in and reframing yourself before that happens. So you don't have to think like, that was a bad day in work and I'm not going to now make it a bad night at home. And he was just like, taking 2 minutes, even just like sat in the car and just doing some big, in through the nose, out through the mouth, breathing and just saying release, release, just saying it constantly. You don't have to say it out loud. You could just say it in your head, and just being like, right, now when I take a step through this front door, I'm going to go in with a different energy because I've just released sort of that energy that I've just had and all that stress from the day. And I'm going to go in and approach the evening in a different situation.
Yeah, it really highlights the power of your thoughts and your mindset, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I found, just coming back to that, we done it with our team event, a couple of weeks ago. And, I was getting up in front of the team. There's like 35 people and I was like, oh, I hate doing this. So I just get nervous and, my throat goes and, I'm going to get a little bit out of breath. And it's happened a couple of times in the past. So I started saying that already like months before it. And then I just started, I think I watched some, neuroscientists talk about like the power of your thoughts and your words. And I just started, so the week before it, I'd started saying, I love public speaking. I love talking in front of the team. I'm going to do a great presentation. I just kept saying it all day. And a couple of times I'd see Steph and I'd just say it and say it and say it. And I'd power pose. And it sounds, even for me, if I heard myself saying this a few years ago, I'd laugh at myself and say, that sounds so woo-woo. But then it come to the day and it was fine. It was like the first time that's ever not happened, versus the flip side of that is like you can wake up and actually feel sick. Like, and people have it before, like big interviews, or anything else. Like you think about an interview, normally you're hunched over, you're nervous, you're in this timid position, and your thoughts are often really negative and not positive about the situation, which, you could switch them to more positivity, more gratitude. Like, hey, like I actually am getting an interview for this job. Like how great is that? Like I'm getting an opportunity to maybe, better myself. You can flip that, but it is so easy to just sink into that negative pit.
It is, and it requires work to switch that default way of thinking. But the great thing, as with any habit that you can change, is when you do it repeatedly, the new way of thinking becomes easier, it becomes normal.
Yeah.
And so the way it works in terms of like the neuroscience of it is called neuroplasticity. So at the moment, you've got like this very routine, potentially, if you don't practice gratitude, very routine thought pattern where like when this happens, I think this. And it's just like a very well-trodden path. So if you imagine your brain's like a really overgrown rainforest, there's like one train of thought and one path that's clear and easy. So you just go down that path every time. When you start to practice gratitude, it's almost like you're hacking like a new path out of the undergrowth. It's really hard work.
Yeah.
And every time you try and go down there, it's regrown a bit. So you've got to hack it out a bit.
Right. Yeah.
So whilst you're learning this new way of thinking, you've got to try really hard every single time. But after time, all of your hacking has paid off and you've made this really lovely clear pathway. And in the meantime, all the weeds have started to grow on the other path.
Yeah.
So actually being negative becomes more difficult. And so you just naturally become more positive, not just about the one thing you've practiced, but about other things as well. And I think that's really cool. It's actually a relatively recent area of research that shows like this is physically changing in your brain. It's not just like your thoughts change, your brain restructures. It's super cool.
Yeah, that's a fantastic analogy of, I'm like literally picturing that as you saying it. And it's true. Like I would definitely say, I mean, you two can probably just laugh at me now, but we've worked together for how long, Stacey? 6 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I've known Si for like 15 years. I would definitely say probably even just like 5 years ago, I was a lot more negative than maybe I am today. And definitely it does take work to start taking those steps. And I think a big part is just getting to know yourself a lot better. And then like what you're saying, it's like developing a skill or a new skill to start thinking about different situations in a different manner and not always just go into the catastrophizing and just the negative and the worst outcome all the time, which it's so easy to just get into that pit about it.
Yeah, and it does serve a purpose. Like when we go back to what I was saying earlier, your brain has evolved to take that as the default because it's kept your ancestors safe for millions of years. So don't beat yourself up about it. Like it's completely normal. But by doing the work, you're then building these stronger pathways that are resilient, like happier, less anxious. And then whenever any problem comes, you've got like this now overgrown path to the negative side. You're going to naturally choose to go more towards the grateful, find what's the good, positive side, because that's what you've trained your brain to do now.
Sorry to interrupt. If you are enjoying this podcast, we would ask you to go and hit the subscribe or the follow button, as we are on a mission to grow this podcast to be as big as it can be and get some amazing guests on here to give you guys even more value. Where do you find you sit on the field with this?
I would say more positive. Okay. I've probably got more negative as I've got older, actually. Okay. So I used to be like super positive, optimistic about every single thing, like nothing could possibly go wrong. And do you know what? The world proved me right a lot. So I would be one of those people where I would like lose my phone, someone would post it to my house. Right. Like, you know, not even tell me their name or ask for the money, like they'd just do it. Like the world was lovely to me. Yeah. And I would do my bit back. I'd like big believer in what you put out there comes back. So I'd always try and be like generous and kind to other people and do the right thing or whatever. But even as I've got older, no one's actually proved me wrong and been mean or bad to me. But I think you just become a bit more like cautious with experience. I've traveled a lot. I've been like, I'm now a mum. So there's like different things that you probably need to worry about. So I'd say I'm probably a little bit more nervous, anxious, negative, but still more inclined to be positive. Yeah. Yeah. And I think a big part of that as well is like my background is very heavily based in yoga. And a lot of the mindset or philosophy side of that is you believe at a base that everybody is good. Like there is good in everybody. And it's only circumstances that make people behave in a negative way, or it's only, you know, something that's going on in someone's head that's making them behave in that way. It's not because they're a bad person. Yeah. I think when you truly believe that, it's a lot easier to just think on the bright side. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Have you had any situations recently where like that sort of pathways came where you've been able to choose negative, but you've been able to switch it and maybe make it more positive? I would say similar to what you explained with you and Steph, it's like when Reese and I have an argument, that's when my negative side will come out. And I think it's probably very common because that's like the most important relationship for most people, like your partner, your spouse. If that's going bad, you start thinking, well, if that's going bad, then what's going to happen to this and this and this? And it has so many implications. That's when my brain might start to go a little bit wild. Yeah. But then similarly to what you said, we've got like a little saying called choose love. So like when we're like really mean to each other or like really having a bad argument, we like one of us has to say like choose love, and then we just have a cuddle. Right. Otherwise we just spiral. Yeah. And again, I think that's super normal when we come back to like that fight or flight kind of response. Even though it's the person you love most in the world, your protective like evolutionary brain is trying to run away or fight or fix and protect you, but actually your higher brain knows it's actually about us. Yeah. You have to remind yourself. Yeah, you do. And I think I think everyone can speak from this, especially being in a longer term relationship. That person is like the person that can get under your skin probably more than anyone else ever possibly humanly could. Not that they do it regularly, or you would like to think, it's probably not a great sign. Not on purpose. Yeah, not on purpose. No, but they know the buttons. Yeah, of course they do, because they know you. Yeah. And also, you're more sensitive to their opinions on things because you care about what they think. So, yes, definitely one of the most stressful parts of life, I would say. But then what I was saying about, it gets you out of that fight or flight situation. It's because you engage your prefrontal cortex, which is your like thinking brain. So it's not your primitive, like I need to protect myself at all costs brain. And that's exactly what gratitude does as well. It makes you turn on your like logical, sensible 21st century human brain and actually think things through in a rational way. Yeah. And so if you are in a stressful situation or you're just in a stressful phase of life, practicing gratitude is one way to switch that part of your brain on and not be living in that constant kind of fear, anxiety cycle that you were talking about. Yeah. I mean, there's a few people I've done this with where they've had like a super stressful day at work and I've maybe had a phone call or certain things have happened, and just like people just taking like 5 minutes, not to just go into the default to get in the car and drive home, and just taking like 5 minutes, do some big deep breathing, write down like a couple of things that you feel grateful for, which tell yourself like you're not going to take that energy and just like really focus on the things that you have,
like it can just completely change the trajectory of that day and even the next day. And just not letting it spiral, as you say. And it's, you know, it really does just shift that moment. Like a huge thing for me this year has been, and even last year, was to just be at peace. To be at peace with the good, the bad, you know, the ugly and everything else in between. And even when I have a really bad day now, I'm just like, well, that was a shit day. You know what I mean? I can just kind of like laugh about it and be like, it's not the end of the world. This hasn't happened. You know, I don't have to catastrophize as much as possible. I mean, I'm just like, and I just accept that like a bad day is like to be expected. You know what I mean? You can't have your good days without your bad days, and just even to an extent be grateful for the bad days because they make you enjoy the good days that much more.
And they usually teach you something.
They always teach you something. There's always a lesson in it.
Yeah. That's another thing about gratitude is it really ups your emotional intelligence. Because you have to like work through what happened that day and like not label things, but, you know, like process things and then understand how that made you feel. How did that make you feel? What does joy even feel like? Did that make me feel happy?
Yeah.
And so your emotional intelligence improves, which means you just have a deeper enjoyment of life.
Yeah. And I think if people like listen to this, they can go like, that sounds like a lot of work. So like I've heard other people like, no, you know, like it does like, so instead of just being like, well, I haven't got time to fucking sit down and, you know, think about why that happened and this happened. I'm just in a mood. I've had a shit day. I just want to go, you know, I just need to go home. And it's like, okay, like this is like similar to when we've had people say they mess up on the diet and it's like, I'm not on my diet anymore. And the reason they do that is because it's one decision. Because if you to go like, hey, well, why have I messed up on my diet? Did I just have one bad meal? Did I have one bad mouthful? You know, like what is it that caused that? I mean, start to ask, like, why did that happen? Was it an emotional decision? Was I not prepared enough? Like, you have to basically interrogate yourself a little bit and then investigate to why that happened. Because if you don't, it's just going to be, I'm off the diet. I mean, I'm just going to go back to old habits and behaviors and end up in the same loop. And I think it's the same with the side of things of gratitude. It's like, if you just go into that, if that sounds like a lot of work, for me, it always helps to just zoom out. So, like, when it comes to making decisions, so it's like, okay, I've had a shit day or I'm not feeling that happy. And it's like, okay, so that's been a day. Okay, now it's been a week. Now it's been a month. Now it's been 6 months. Okay, so like this is still happening and now I'm listening to this podcast and it's like, yeah, I haven't been feeling as happy or as joyful as I can. It's like, okay, can you see this changing tomorrow, next week, next year, the next decade? And if like the answer is no, it's like, don't you think it's worth putting in the time to do a little bit of investigating? So like when you do have a bad day, you're like, hey, I'm not going to take that energy home because I love my partner, I love my family, I love my friends. I want to go and spend some time with them. And I'm not going to let like some uncontrollable events that happen in the workplace, that energy be taken into elsewhere. And I'm going to start putting in that 5 minutes or that 10 minutes to create different outcomes because that's how I like to make decisions. I just get very logical about it. Like, hey, like this sucks and I don't want it to keep sucking and it's going to keep being that way unless I change my behaviors and actions.
Yes, I 100% agree. And also understanding there's a little tiny bit you can do if it feels too much. Like it doesn't have to be 5 minutes, it doesn't have to be 10 minutes. It could be one thing, like 20 seconds. It could be 20 seconds to start you off. And the other thing about it is it doesn't have to be writing in a journal. It doesn't have to be saying it out loud. It doesn't have to be sitting in your car. Like there's 100 different ways that you can start to introduce gratitude in your life. And if you're the kind of person that really struggles with it, it can be something like quite regimented. It's almost like when you're trying to teach a kid manners. Like your kid doesn't want to say thank you and please every single time. It's just extra effort and they don't really understand why.
Yeah.
It's just, you have to remind them for years. Yeah. Right. But eventually you become a 30-year-old person who just says thank you and please. And it's not even something you think about. It's exactly the same with practicing gratitude. But to start with, you probably have to
It's not going to take 30 years.
It's not going to take 30 years. But to start with, you have to like set yourself ground rules and expectations. And it can be really helpful. Instead of having this open book, at the end of the day, I'm going to think of something I'm grateful for, to actually decide in advance, right, I'm going to make time to have, like, when I have my morning coffee, I'm going to sit and just be grateful for 10 seconds of whatever it is that I'm doing. Whether I'm scrolling on my phone, I'm grateful that I've got peace from my kids to do that. Whether it's because my coffee has tasted delicious today, doesn't matter. But you've decided that is the one thing that I'm going to practice gratitude for. Mm-hmm. That's a good step in the door for some people, because when it is, like you say, too many decisions, too many like vague things to try and understand and pin down, it can feel too much.
Yeah.
So giving yourself like a very strict parameter can feel a lot more accessible.
Yeah, I think and just having the awareness and trying to create the opportunities to do that as well. So, like that, I think that's just the big one, creating the opportunities to do it, whether that's having cues like the coffee or being in the car or whatever it might be, or just like being on your own for a second, try and making that a cue of like, hey, like this is happening, and just try and switch into gratitude for a little bit, can make a really big difference. Like for me, and obviously it's not a regular basis, but it's just something that happens. Anytime it's like blue skies outside, I always look up. And I'm just grateful. Like, I mean, we live in the UK. It's grey all the time. I think everyone's grateful.
I think that's why we love the sun so much.
We do, yeah. But that's always like a cue for me. It's just like it's a beautiful day outside because it's blue skies and it's not grey for once, or it's not raining. So that's always one that I'm grateful for. But then that kind of triggers me into be like, right, let's try and do a couple of other things that I'm grateful for. And I think just having a few of those cues that are personal to you, that when they happen on a regular basis, you're like, let's just switch into gratitude for a couple of minutes, because you've basically got that reminder.
Yeah, and it definitely feels more genuine when it's like that, because it is something you already have a baseline appreciation for. You're not just like forcing it onto yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I sometimes think when people hear, oh, you're going to write down 3 things you're grateful for, I often hear the pushback of, well, it's just going to be the 3 same things every day, like my partner, my job, my house. And so when you like trying to force these 3 things, it can be really hard to open your mind to things that actually make you happy or bring you joy or you're thankful for. So having a baseline of something that you already kind of have that affinity to is a good place to start.
Yeah. Have you got anything personal for yourself?
In terms of things that I'm thankful for?
Well, just like, do you have any sort of cues or practices that...
So we've talked about this on the podcast before, but it's something that Reese and I do at night is before we go to bed, or when we're in bed, we like ask each other, what are you grateful for? What are you proud of? What would you do differently? What did you like love the most about spending time together today? What did you love the most about our little boy today? And that's our like gratitude practice together.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you guys do that every day?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. When we're together.
Yeah.
Yes, he does works nights a lot. But then I feel like it takes it to the next level as well, because it's expressing the gratitude to each other, which is why we added that one of like, what did you love most about hanging out together today? Yeah. Because it's really easy in a long-term relationship to just go through life. Mm-hmm. And Reese's love language is words, and I am rubbish at telling him nice things. I'm rubbish. So adding that question in makes me tell him every day, like, oh, I love this about hanging out with you, or I was really grateful that you made my lunch for me, or whatever it was. So finding something that really works for you and that fits in, like for us, that is a habit that we're going to go to sleep every night. Okay, he's not always there, so it's not every day, but every night he is there. We do that. Yeah.
No, it's really good. Yeah.
What about you?
The one thing that I guess it's been like a little bit more of a framework, and we got this off, here's another name drop, Phil Graham gave this to me, which is like each Saturday we book in the next week. So we try and book in fun for each week, because otherwise I would just work till I just go to bed almost every day unless I had a reason sort of to stop. And mainly because I do enjoy work, and I would just do that unless I have a reason to set a boundary. So we book in some like fun for the week, but then we actually go through the part of like, we say, is there anything that we need to apologize for this week? So we kind of, I don't know if that's necessarily gratitude, but like if there's anything that's happened in the last week, instead of letting it build up for more than a week, we'll apologize for that, and we both do it. Then we both say something we're thankful for each other. So it could just be like something really little. Like I've just been like making Steph's coffees in the morning before she goes to work. So she's just got the ones that she takes in, which is only something I've started doing, but she's continues to express a lot of gratitude for that. So there's just like little things. So we're saying that, and then we're booking things in for the week. So it's like we're apologizing for anything that's happened in the past week, even as little or big as it could be. We're saying something we're grateful for with the other person, and then we're booking in something to make sure that we prioritize spending time with each other that week. And that's been like a good little framework that we try and do before end of day Saturday. So it's like not even the Sunday, and we're trying to get it done before the weekend. It's like, oh, we've done it on Saturday, and we can even enjoy Sunday more, because I typically work Saturday. And then, we've got a couple of things to look forward to, and it's like a clean slate going into the next week.
Yeah, I think having these structures is really helpful, because it then just becomes part of your routine, whether that's a daily thing, a weekly thing. And particularly having a child now, I feel like there's stuff like this that I want him to do, like he brushes his teeth. Like I want him to practice gratitude at some point during his day. And if we model that from day one, that's going to be something that he thinks is normal, and he just builds that into the way he runs his day, he runs his week. And having structure is amazing for humans. Like, we're really good at sticking to structure.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, we're talking about like neuroplasticity and changing your brain. Like their brains are so plastic in that sense. So, like if you can start to develop those habits around gratitude and, having great nutritional skills and habits, like for them, it's just going to be second nature. They will just become teenagers and young adults, and like all the struggles that maybe we've had with thinking positively or with our nutrition or great sleep habits, like they will just often be like the default for them. It's such an opportunity. Like it may be a struggle for you, but you can almost not pass that down to them as well by fixing the problem yourself.
Definitely. And I think for this generation of kids, teens that are growing up with this social media comparison trap, it's essential that they've got that foundation of understanding like what they are thankful for, that they don't end up comparing everything to other people, that they've got that real like foundation of, this is my life, I'm grateful for this in my life. I don't need to covet someone else's life because I'm so grateful for my life.
Yeah. So I went to private school with a scholarship after being in another school, and then got kicked out of private school my last year before finishing. We can save that for another day. But the thing that was actually the worst about that was comparison on another level. So, I've got these shoes that are X amount of pounds. I've got this cut. And it was like, so I found up until my like early 20s, I had like a compulsion to tell people like how much money things were when nobody ever asked or nobody ever cared. And it was like literally just ingrained in me because I was in that school, and I was just surrounded by like, hey, this is this much, this is this much, this is this much. And it was just like comparison on steroids, which we weren't able to keep up in that sense. And I see what that done, at least to me. And I was at least able to get the awareness and kind of move away from that as I went into my like sort of early mid-20s. But then looking at like kids now and speaking to so many friends who've got kids, especially teenage girls, and like the comparison, especially about their bodies. And it's just like negative talk about the bodies constantly, and then just constantly idolizing and comparing themselves to other women or girls on social media. It can be really toxic if you don't have that framework in place to be grateful for the body that you have and the things that you can do.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy to minimize it and say, just practice gratitude and you'll be fine. But it really does help. And I think if you've got that completely different mindset, and again, I think it's intertwined with my background in yoga, because there's lots of other parts of yoga philosophy, which is not just gratitude. But if you've got that like deep sense of peace in who you are and what you value and what you're grateful for, you really can just scroll on by everyone else. It doesn't bother you. You're happy that they've got that. Like, good for them. But I don't even want that. I want this.
Yeah.
And so I think it's something, again, like you said, it's a skill set to learn early on. And if you haven't learned it early on, you can start small, you can start now. It's never too late to start with anything.
Yeah.
And particularly with something like gratitude, which can literally be a couple of seconds a day, but have such profound effects. It's linked to better health outcomes. It's linked to better mental health outcomes. It's linked with lower stress, anxiety, depression. So it's not just us saying, this is a good thing you should maybe try and do. Like, research study after research study shows that it really is a good thing you should do.
I think sometimes that can be, if you're like somebody like needs science or data to back up while you're doing something. Like if you were to look at what your resting heart rate is, or take your blood pressure on a continual basis, and then start practicing gratitude or start doing some sort of meditation, and then you see like, my heart rate variability has gone up and my blood pressure is going in healthier markers, my resting heart rate is down a couple of beats. Like that's like a very clear indication that your physiology is telling you what you're doing in terms of gratitude with your psychology is having an impact. And sometimes I think a lot of people need that like kind of evidence instead of it just like, do I feel better? Like you kind of need to see some of the numbers to be like, like this works. And then you don't do it, and when you take it and you're like, like my blood pressure has gone up and my resting heart rate's higher and I'm sleeping worse. So I think sometimes that can be, really beneficial tools. I found that like with the Whoop, like it's influencing my behavior through the numbers. And I know a few people, we've had clients before, we've had the Aura rings, and like hated meditation or the thought of doing meditation, and then like done meditation, like heart rate variability's been up like 20-30% when they do it. And when they don't do it, and they see the big drop, and they're like, like I'm gonna have to meditate then. You know what I mean? But it's just like, again, it's having that evidence, and sometimes your body being able to tell you basically from a data standpoint that like, hey, like this stuff does work, and it is gonna make you physically and mentally feel better.
And it totally makes sense when you understand what we talked about with like the cortisol and the dopamine and everything that comes along with it. It is physiologically changing you. So it's not just one study showed this. It is the way that human physiology works. And if there's only 2 minutes in your day to do it, like I said before, it's going to start to shift your way of thinking. That like rainforest path is going to start to change, even if you just do 2 minutes a day. And it's going to compound over time. So if you do nothing else today, at the end of this episode, please just think of like one thing that you're grateful for, and let that be the start of your gratitude practice. Thanks for listening to the Body Smart Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed today's show. If you did, then make sure you subscribe or follow to make sure you don't miss out on any episodes. They drop every Thursday.